Let's talk about these ETFs, and then I want to go broad and sort of get your sense of where the market is and where crypto's going and what's happening here. But tell us about these ETFs specifically and what you're trying to do.
Yes, with our partner 21 Shares, which is the largest crypto ETP provider in the world, mainly European focused, we are launching 5 ETFs. The strategies are going to be around Bitcoin futures, Ethereum futures. One will be Bitcoin futures and cash. One will be Bitcoin futures and Ethereum futures. And then the last one will be broader Bitcoin and companies exposed to digital assets, equities.
How much of this is a dress rehearsal in your mind for a moment in which the SEC says, okay, cat's out of the bag, you can actually issue an ETF that's directly invested in Bitcoin?
Well, it certainly is a dress rehearsal. We think there's a place. I think these strategies will be more probably institutionally focused, and I think the spot coin Bitcoin ETF will be perhaps more retail focused.
Is that something you want to do eventually?
A spot Bitcoin?
Yes.
Yes. What's interesting about it is, if you look at the pecking order, our filing is next in line.
No, I know you're on the list. So
yes.
the question. So let me ask you about that, because I think, and the question is actually at $36,000. Do you think that the move that we've seen in Bitcoin over the last 2 months now, how much of that is a function of sort of a pent-up demand or an anticipation that the SEC, because folks like BlackRock and Fidelity and you and others have made these applications, have the sense that it's more likely to happen now than it was a year or two ago?
Yeah.
And is that misguided? Is that realistic? What is that?
I think what has happened, the change, is that the SEC actually asked us questions. I think asked us questions, asked BlackRock, probably has asked a lot. Whereas before, our filings were just rejected outright. Hand.
Okay.
So that is movement. That is significant. And, over the years, I've gotten to know the research people at the SEC, and I'm very impressed. And I was impressed by the questions they asked us, too. So,
what were the kinds of questions they asked?
A lot of them were very technical. They're all about protecting the consumer. And, of course, the showstopper, at least from Gary Gensler's point of view, is he thinks Bitcoin can be manipulated. And, this is a decentralized, transparent network. You can follow all the activity online. It's highly unlikely.
Well, it had to be that because he understands, Cathie. He's got enough. Not many people do. A lot of people don't have enough knowledge about how it works to make an informed decision about Bitcoin. He taught at MIT so he understands that it's not a Ponzi scheme or a Beanie Baby. Right. So there has to be something else.
Well, I don't know what it is. I have wondered. There's speculation that he's interested in the Treasury Secretary position at some point. What does the Treasury Secretary do?
Protecting fiat for the government?
Very focused on. I don't know. I don't understand it myself, because he definitely understands.
He understands. So there's something else.
There's something
else. Okay, but how much do you account for the move in Bitcoin as speculation on an ETF being approved? And is it a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of situation, or is it just a straight shot if, in fact, that were to come to be pass?
I am sure there is some anticipation, and there could even be a sell on the news. But the fundamentals, we put out a Bitcoin monthly piece every month, and you can see the health of the network using our on-chain metrics. The health of the network is almost as good as it gets, and it seems like this is a bull market. Sure, we'll have puts and takes. Nothing goes straight up. But I think this flight to quality, Larry Fink used that expression.
This crypto could go up as much as 5,300% by 2030, according to Cathie Wood of ARK Invest. And as institutional investors boost their position in Bitcoin, their buying could push its price past the $1.5 million mark. And at the same time, as Bitcoin is going mainstream with its investors, its real-world use cases are continuing to grow. Just how likely is Bitcoin to hit a $3.8 $3.8 million price within 6 years. And Cathie Wood of ARK Invest continues to increase her price forecast for Bitcoin. And at the recent Bitcoin Investor Day event in New York City, Cathie Wood boosted a 2030 Bitcoin price forecast to $3.8 million from already a lofty figure of $1.5 million. And given today's price is in the neighborhood of $70,000, that would be an eye-popping gain of about 5,600% within just 6 years. A lot of people today already regret not buying Bitcoin when it was at $2,000, $3,000. The first time I invested in Bitcoin, it was at $5,000. But if I really knew it would go up to $70,000, I would have cashed in big time. And so, but even from now, if Bitcoin can go up 5,300%, that would be massive. And on the face of it, the prediction sounds outlandish. However, there are two key catalysts that could eventually make it a reality. The first one is the institutional adoption. And the primary factor pushing Bitcoin to previously unthinkable heights is stronger than expected institutional adoption. And quite simply, large institutional investors are waking up to the idea of Bitcoin as a standalone asset class worthy of inclusion in their portfolios.
We call it flight to safety. You look at what happened during the regional bank crisis. Bitcoin went from 19,000 to nearly 30,000 as the KRE, the regional bank stock index, was imploding. If you look at the bank stock index today, it is back down close to where it was in March. So when Larry might say flight to quality, which is good, it's true, we would say flight to safety because there's no counterparty risk in Bitcoin.
In terms of the ETF that is launching, that invests in equities related to Bitcoin, what do you think will be the better performer over, let's say, 5 years? An ETF that invests in the equity related to Bitcoin or Bitcoin itself?
We believe Bitcoin will be the better performer longer term. But this is a diversified exposure through equities. There are companies, we're trying to find the company that is going to produce the digital wallet. That will be a very important position. Is it Coinbase? Is it Square with Cash App? Is it Robinhood? In Latin America, is it Mercado Libre or Nubank? So
how much overlap is there between this ETF that invests in the equity with the holdings in some of your other ETFs like ARK Invest?
Probably the biggest overlap would be ARKF, the fintech portfolio. Yes. You
just mentioned a number of companies, all of whom have had stocks that have been challenged, including Robinhood. How do you think about those companies right now?
Well, we do think that each of them has a very good opportunity in the digital wallet space. Basically, if you think about WeChat Pay, that kind of digital wallet where all financial services take place, there's peer-to-peer interaction, there's commerce over it. We believe that the rails in the United States have been good enough, but WeChat Pay showed the way, and I think we have.
But is that a one-player winner? Meaning, and by the way, Elon Musk would like to be that winner with X if he could be.
Absolutely, and I think he's got big plans. Absolutely, he started in the fintech space, and of course sold out to PayPal. So, yeah.
I mean, Cathie, on Coinbase, I used to go down and I had like 4 pages of coins and eventually it got to the point where people said there's Bitcoin and everything else. Do you think is there an application for blockchain that involves something that Bitcoin does not lead the world with? Is there something else that you put in here?
Sure. The reason we have focused as much on Ether, Ethereum as we have is we think, that is the smart contract network. That is the decentralized finance network.
So Bitcoin and Ether, anything beyond that?
Well, there are infrastructure players. Solana is doing a really good job. I mean, if you look at Ether was faster and cheaper than Bitcoin in the day. That's how we got Ether. Solana is even faster and cost-effective than Ether. So, there are infrastructure plays. We do believe Web3, digital assets. That's a big idea, actually. Digital assets with property rights. First time ever online that we're seeing property rights.
Do you think that some bears with Bitcoin have said, okay, there will be a Bitcoin 2.0? that someone comes up with. I don't know whether
They've
there's
already
something more
tried.
perfect.
There were so many
Is there anything more
forks in the
perfect? Can there be something more perfect than Bitcoin?
I think most people understand that Bitcoin is the money revolution. This is the first global.
A lot of people don't understand that because they haven't read anything about it.
Right, private, so no government oversight, digital, very important, rules-based monetary system in history. And Art Laffer, my professor, mentor, and friend, when we did our first paper on and took our first position in Bitcoin in 2015, when he understood what this was, he said, I've been waiting for this since they closed the gold window in 1971.
And with the launch of the new spot Bitcoin ETF, they now have a regulated way to invest in Bitcoin without having to participate directly into the crypto market. The investors' flow into the new spot Bitcoin ETF since Jan has been nothing short of breathtaking. And the top 2 spot Bitcoin ETFs have together accumulated more than $25 billion in customer assets in just over 2 months. And the new ARK 21 shares Bitcoin ETF hasn't done too shabby either, with nearly $3 billion in assets under management. And granted, some of the money is coming from small retail investors, but the lion's share is coming from institutional investors. And the big question, of course, is just what their assets these institutional investors would choose to allocate to Bitcoin over time. If it goes up, the price of Bitcoin will go up massively because these are big people we're talking about. And right now, the prudent allocation range is viewed as 1% to 3%. But Cathie Wood thinks that this allocation will eventually rise to well over 5%, and that percentage would be high enough, she asserts, to push Bitcoin past the $1.5 million mark. And for Bitcoin to hit its full potential, though, something more is needed. And from my perspective, it's highly unlikely Bitcoin can get to $3.8 million if people are just hoarding it and holding it for dead life. People actually need to be doing something with their Bitcoin. And in crypto lingo, Bitcoin needs to have some sort of utility on its own, apart from being a great investment. And that is why ARK Invest has consistently focused on all of the potential use cases for Bitcoin. And from a macro perspective, growth in these use cases will drive greater demand for Bitcoin, which should buy its price. And in ARK's Invest Big Ideas 2023 report, the investment firm outlined 8 key use cases for Bitcoin, projected their growth potential, and then aggregated the market size of each for the year 2030. And that is how ARK Invest arrived at the $1.5 million price target for Bitcoin. And rapid price appreciation can only happen, says Cathie Wood, if Bitcoin becomes a financial superhighway for the world's banking and financial system. And the constitution of such a financial superhighway would be of particular importance, says Cathie Wood, to emerging market nations. So you can imagine a Bitcoin superhighway traversing Latin America or connecting the nations of sub-Saharan Africa. And while this sounds very inspiring, how realistic is this scenario? Because after all, Bitcoin remains a relatively slow proof-of-work blockchain that was never designed to handle smart contracts. It's not as fast as the other blockchains, not as energy efficient as other blockchains, and not as flexible or scalable as other blockchains. And that's why all the use cases that were originally projected for Bitcoin, such as the scenario that one day we'd all be paying for everything we buy with Bitcoin, has not come true. And from my perspective, it would be much better to build a financial superhighway using a super fast, super cheap blockchain such as Solana. Even Cardano might be a better choice, especially given the inroads it has made in sub-Saharan Africa. So I'm not quite yet as ready to embrace this financial superhighway view of Bitcoin as I was to embrace former Vice President's information superhighway view of the internet. But still, even in the most ambitious projection, how realistic is a $3.8 million price target? And the ability of Bitcoin to hit a $3.8 million price target depends on whether it can continue to deliver historical high returns to investors even going in the future. And working backward and doing just a few back-of-the-envelope calculations, Bitcoin would have to deliver annualized returns of just over 100% to hit a $3.8 million price target by 2030. That is still a lot, but Bitcoin has always surprised us in the past, and even this year, no one expected Bitcoin to suddenly jump and go up, but it did. And given that Bitcoin has done this before, over the 10-year period from 2001 to 2011, Bitcoin delivered annualized returns of 230%, making it top-performing asset in the world. And just last year, Bitcoin turned in a blistering performance of 150%. So no one can say that Bitcoin cannot return 100% per year, but at some point you have to tamp down your expectations and cut through some of the current Bitcoin ETF euphoria. While I remain highly bullish on Bitcoin's prospects, I'm also concerned that some of these price predictions are getting ratcheted up too highly and too quickly, says Motley Fool. But still, despite of all of this, Cathie says that the price of Bitcoin could head to $3.8 million given the latest developments for the world's largest cryptocurrency. And recently, she told Anthony that a flood of institutional adoption and new ETF products means that her bull case scenario could see the token climb by more than $2 million above her already existing price target. And Cathie Wood's ARK Invest shared a Bitcoin outlook in Jan that estimated that the token could hit $1.5 million by 2030, which we all thought that to be a lot. But now, Bitcoin has already gone up 44% year to date, and on Friday it went above $64,000. And last year, we pull out our bull case for Bitcoin, it was 1.5 million, with institutional green light that the SEC has provided, kicking and screaming though it did. But the analysis we've done is that if institutional investors were to allocate a little more than 5% of their portfolios to Bitcoin, as we think they will over time, that alone would add $2.3 million to the projection that I just gave you on Bitcoin, is what Cathie Wood said. So if the adoption increases and if Bitcoin can prove itself to be of some utility value, things could be great for Bitcoin in the coming 5 years. So that's it guys from here today. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and do hit the like button. I hope you all have a good day.